Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. Thank you for stopping by. I'm always grateful. We've uploaded Albert Mugo, the CEO and Managing Director of Kengen, the piece of Mindspeak where he makes his presentation. Do take a look. The link is on the front page and on Rich Wrap-Ups. Well, macro thoughts. That recovery did not last very long, did it? Have a look at this from Holger. Dow Jones drops more than 200 points as oil plunges by more than 7% on heightened worries over growth. And then the big issue was Chinese stocks, which slumped 6% in a late selling frenzy. And clearly there's further to go because it's such an expensive market on any normal valuation basis. China stock markets crashed. Shanghai Composite closed at the lowest level in 13 months. And take a look at the chart. Home thoughts, chasing fried eggs with Jorge Luis Borges. On another occasion during an interview in Rome, an Italian journalist tried to embarrass him. As he failed to do so, he asked Borges, "Do you still have cannibals in your country?" Borges replied, "No, we don't. We ate them all." For a blind person used to living on past memories, perhaps the life of the imagination was for him more important than real life, and yet his life and work had a singular impact on the life of many. Up a photograph of Jorge Luis Borges and a few quotes from a book, Labyrinths. "There is no pleasure more complex than that of thought, and we surrendered ourselves to it." "This has happened and will happen again," said Euphorbus. "You are not lighting a pyre, you are lighting a labyrinth of flames. If all the fires I have seen were gathered together here, they would not fit on earth, and the angels would be blinded. I have said this many times." Then he cried out because the flames had reached him. Two more. Tennyson said that if we could understand a single flower, we would know who we are and what the world is. Perhaps he meant that there is no deed, however so humble, which does not implicate universal history and the infinite concatenation of causes and effects. Perhaps he meant that the visible world is implicit in its entirety, in each manifestation, just as, in the same way, will, according to Schopenhauer, is implicit in its entirety in each individual. And finally, whoever has seen the universe, whoever has beheld the fiery designs of the universe, cannot think in terms of one man, of that man's trivial fortunes or misfortunes, though he be that very man. That man has been he, and now matters no more to him. What is the life of that other to him, the nation of that other to him, if he now is no one? This is why I do not pronounce the formula, why lying here in the darkness I let the days obliterate me. Political reflections. Syrian talks delayed while UN seeks agreement on participants. My conclusions are: one surmises that Assad and Putin are altering the facts on the ground in their favor, and that therefore probably happy to string this along. Put up a photograph of the UN envoy to Syria, Stefan de Mistura, who said that initial talks would not involve direct contact between representatives of the Syrian government and the opposition. Proximity talks, they're called. I'll put up a photograph of Vladimir and Bashar, and obviously, as I said when I wrote that piece, that he was the geopolitical grandmaster. His intervention has been defining, reshaping the Syrian landscape. Winners and losers in the Syrian civil war. Patrick Coburn. The two sides hate each other and have spent 5 years trying to kill each other, making it unlikely that they will agree to share power in any way except geographically, with each side keeping the territory it currently holds and defending it with its own armed forces. The problem about ending the war in Syria and Iraq is that there is a multitude of players who are too strong to lose but too weak to win. Countries and movements such as Iran and Hezbollah see themselves as fighting for their very existence in a war they cannot afford to lose. Others like Saudi Arabia and Turkey have invested too much credibility in the struggle for Syria to admit they are not going to achieve their aim of ousting President Assad. The big loser here could be Turkey, which seemed to be in such a strong position to extend its influence across the Middle East in 2011. Its image as an economically prospering democratic yet Islamic state was attractive to many Arab protesters looking to overthrow and replace dictatorial rule. But the Turkish president, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, soon made clear he was supporting a Sunni Arab sectarian takeover that was anti-Shia, anti-Kurd, anti-secular, and was bound to be resisted. Having first backed the Muslim Brotherhood, Turkey then tolerated or helped ISIS, al-Nusra, and extreme jihadi groups. It was a calamitous miscalculation for Syria and for Turkey. For all of President Erdogan's neo-Ottoman dreams of making Turkey a great power in the Middle East again, he has achieved the opposite. How he responds to this failure should become clear in the coming months as the US and Russia try in different ways and in support of a rather different list of allies to close the border between northern Syria and Turkey. Prime Minister of India tweeted President Hollande and myself on board the Delhi Metro. Malaysia calls for caution on MH370 as metal found in Thailand. They're now saying discounting it is from the plane. Barnacle-encrusted debris measuring about 2 meters by 3 meters was found by fishermen off the country's east coast in the Gulf of Thailand. In 2014, I said the signal announcing this new arrhythmic normal was the disappearance of MH370. His Excellency Johann Borgstam told me that the signal announcing this new arrhythmic normal was the disappearance of the MH370. Since then, planes have been falling out of the sky like flies, and the uncertainty around MH370 and MH17, which is sharp, and by the way the story is seemingly turned on and off, took me back to Don DeLillo. We are not witnessing the flow of information so much as pure spectacle, or information made sacred, ritually unreadable. The small monitors of the office, home and car become a kind of idolatry here, where crowds might gather in astonishment. The Malaysian Prime Minister has been cleared of corruption over a $681 million Saudi gift. Generous folks, the Saudis. Euro is at 108.60, dollar index around the 99.26 level, Japanese yen 117.80, Swissy 101.31, the pound just fallen back below 142, 141.86. Aussie is at 0.6938, India rupee 67.824, South Korean won 1205.48, the Rial 408.61, Egyptian pound 783, and the Rand is going to soften up from here 1660. I'll put up a 3-month chart of the dollar index. I stick by my year-end target of 110. Euro dollar, I'll put up a 3-month chart of this. This is getting a bid because it has a flight to safety quality these days, but the key level is just above 104.80. Dollar yen, 117.83. My target is 105. Commodity markets, gold getting a push higher now at 11.15. Big spike today. Crude oil, last time I looked, $29.57 in New York. That bounce did not really carry through. Should have got to 34.50. It's failed. It's headed lower again. Let's move on to Africa. South Sudan needs arms embargo. Leaders are killing civilians, says a UN panel. The panel asked the Council to blacklist high-level decision makers responsible for the actions and policies that threaten the peace, security, and stability of the country. Names of the individuals the panel recommend for sanctions in the form of an international travel ban and asset freeze were not included in the body of the report, but a diplomat familiar with the contents told Reuters that a highly confidential annex calls for blacklisting both Kiir and Machar. Deservedly so. Goodness. Africa's currency crises spark diverging central bank stances. This is an article in Bloomberg. South Africa, Nigeria, Angola, Ghana. Ghana, no change. Angola's postponed the meeting. Nigeria, the pressure to devalue is now overwhelming. And South Africa all have rate-setting meetings this week. Obviously, people are taking different approaches, but just have a look at this, which is charts the performance of African currencies. As you can see, it's been a big old bloodbath. Seychelles, an Indian archipelago off the East African coast, plans to offer so-called blue bonds to investors to fund the development of sustainable fisheries later this year, in talks with multilateral agencies, including the African Development Bank, World Bank, to facilitate the sale of $10 million of the government-backed debt, Finance Minister Jean-Paul Adam said in a phone interview January 22nd from the capital. Securities are modelled on green bonds, which channel their proceeds to projects that save energy, curb pollution, and recycle resources. Seychelles is considering the debt as its $169 million of bonds due January 2026 outperform other sub-Saharan African nations, returning 2.6% this year, compared with an average loss of 2.9% among 17 countries on the continent, tracked by Bloomberg. I visited the Seychelles in November last year, and I wrote that I was writing this article from Mahe, one of the 115 islands that make up the Seychelles archipelago, which lies 1,500 kilometers off East Africa. Seychelles has a population of 90,024. That is the smallest population of any independent African state. The Minister for Finance, Trade and the Blue Economy, whom I met, Jean-Paul Adam, informed me that the Seychelles receives tourists 3 times its population every year. If Kenya was to receive the same ratio of tourists, we would be welcoming 120 million tourists a year. The minister described to me how the Seychelles navigated the 2008 financial crisis, when debt to GDP soared to close to 125%, and the republic defaulted, but now runs an annual surplus of over 5%. The debt to GDP ratio is in the 40% range after some help from the Paris Club and the IMF. Let us hope Seychelles in 2008 is not a harbinger for some countries on the mainland continent, I wrote. Put up a photograph of my Hannah on the beach, and a rather nice beach it was too. South African all-share down 6.87% year to date. Dollar rand, let me put up a 6-month chart, you know my feelings, I think we'll hit 20. Egyptian pound 783, Egyptian EGX 30 down 15.88% year to date. From Venezuela type crises to free float Nigeria Naira choices, they have to do something. It would really undermine the credibility of the central bank if they say nothing about it. That's the expectation that the official rate has to give, currently around 197 or 199, saying there are few options open to him. If devalue, let the currency trade in a band, no devaluation for 6 months, let the Naira float, which is what they should do, create a second official exchange rate, resort to Venezuela-style regime. Nigeria all shares down 16.33% year to date. Ghana Central Bank kept its benchmark policy rate at 26% on Monday. Ghana Stock Exchange Composite Index is up 0.25% year to date, bucking the Africa-wide trend. Central Bank Governor sets public finance tone for the year. This was yesterday in Business Daily. Opposition leader Raila Odinga recently named the CBK as one of the institutions that played a negative role in the controversial Eurobond affair, and called on authorities to investigate some of the institution's senior staff. What is your position? Claims that $999 million is missing from the CBA accounts are far from the truth. There was a balance, $999 million, in JP Morgan's sovereign bond account, and the National Treasury instructed the CBK to transfer the balance from the sovereign bond account at CBK and close the JP Morgan account. So the CBK acquired the $999 million, credited the National Treasury account with 88 billion shillings. That is the simple transaction, and this we do all the time. The account that was credited with the dollars is a CBK account in the Federal Reserve Bank account of New York. We at CBK have accounts with so many other central banks in the world because we are regularly working with them in our normal course of business. There was another transaction on December the 17th. The amount in US dollars was $815 million, and it was converted to Kenya shillings at the then prevailing rate, such that the Treasury account was credited with 73.8 billion shillings. And please have a think of those comments in the context of what I wrote over the weekend. Who is the puppeteer? That link is there as well. Kenya shilling, steady as you like, 102.345. Nairobi all shares snapped a losing streak to close 0.48% high yesterday, but remains down 5.88% year to date. NSE 20 up a marginal 0.13% yesterday, down 7.13% year to date, but obviously outperforming other parts of Africa by a wide margin. Sasini tea and coffee was strong, up 3.66% yesterday, and I refer you back to the article in the Africa Confidential which said, secondly, the commodity price crash is not blighting all Africa's exports. For example, export earnings from cocoa, coffee and tea look set to hold up, both in the increasingly lucrative specialist markets and in the traditional bulk purchase markets. Safaricom up 0.99%. I expect it to rebound meaningfully from here. Standard Group was up sharply, 8.03%. KCB, heavy duty volume, 24.365 million shares yesterday, closed unchanged, but price was leaning higher. Weighted average and where it was trading at the close were higher than the closing price. Trades on a trailing PE of 6.838, which looks cheap to me. Barclays was soft, closed down 2.53%. There was a very big supply showing on the board, and Barclays PLC chatter around downsizing Africa has surely not been helpful. EABL up 1.56%. We've issued a cautionary statement where they're talking about a proposed investment from an international institutional investor of about $125 million via convertible preference shares. Kengen up 0.92%. Flametree Group, which signed an agreement to acquire the leading cosmetic brand in Kenya, subject to approval from the Competition Authority, surged just over 7% yesterday. If you want to follow the stock exchange in real time, just register on rich.ca.ke. It's free, get a password, go to Rich Live, and then do remember, this Saturday we've got the Cabinet Secretary of the Treasury, Henry Rotich, in the house at Mind Speaks, so I hope to see you there. Once again, thank you.